everyone, I'm Rita with Everything Homemade, and this is the third video in the rhubarb series, and we are going to make a delicious rhubarb sauce. I'm going to give you a couple of variations and then we're going to dive into it. Basically, in a nutshell, what you want to do, whatever size pot you are doing, you want to do half rhubarb, half the other fruit. That way their proportions will always be perfect. So some variations can be rhubarb and strawberries, can be rhubarb and apples, can be rhubarb, apples and strawberries, can be rhubarb mixed with any kind of berry, rhubarb mixed with pears. You can see where I'm going here. You can just mix it up, but the perfect proportion that I really like is half and half. So whatever you're doing, half rhubarb, half the other fruit added into it. So I'm going to make one sauce. I like to make some of this ahead of time where I then can it and it goes downstairs. One, to save freezer space, and two, it's made right now, so I can use it as a jam because it'll be thick, so you can actually spread it on toast, or you can use it over pancakes, or you can use it over ice cream. Whatever you want to use it, you can. So I'm going to do a rhubarb strawberry for the example for this video. And what I have done is I have frozen rhubarb and frozen strawberries. And when I first shot this video, we were in the middle of chopping up the rhubarb. And I thought I could make everything fresh, but life has its way of throwing a curve, and I could not get into the kitchen to actually do some of these until now. So what I did was I took all the rhubarb down, frozen in bags, and now we're pulling out what we froze, and what fruit is actually in season right now is what I mix with the rhubarb. So as the season progresses, later on when apples come in season, I will start making rhubarb applesauce. Right now strawberries are in season, so I'm making rhubarb strawberry sauce. So let's not delay, let's get into it and I'll show you what I have. So right now I have 2 bags of rhubarb here, and I have 2 bags of frozen strawberries. Everything is frozen here. Now, a couple of techniques. If your rhubarb is like totally frozen solid, you could take a kitchen hammer, and I usually use a pot holder, and I can just smash up the bag like this, just so it pours easier. Same with the strawberries. You can just kind of hit them. And this is how I break things apart within the bag if I can't, if they're frozen really, really tight. So that's one technique there. The other thing I have here is a nice big Stockpot. And what you're going to do is you're going to start pouring this in. So, Ocean, you want to come look over here? So that's 1 bag of rhubarb. There's another bag. Now you have to remember, once it starts to cook, it is going to reduce half the size. So everything's going to be really bulky until it starts cooking. The other thing, because this is frozen, it has a lot of water in it. So I'm not going to add any water to this pot. I'm going to put the pot on low, thaw out the bottom, which will release the waters, and then I'm going to increase the heat, cook it down, and therefore no water is necessary to be added to it. So, strawberries. And these are just whole frozen strawberries that we have. Look at that. Okay, and this bag here is a little bit frozen, so I am going to grab my pot holder, which went where, Ocean? Oh, okay. I'm going to grab my pot holder. I tried to open this already, but this is too frozen to actually spill out. There we go. Put this in. Now, like I said, this is going to get full, okay? But it will reduce. So there's all my delicious flavor and goodness in my pot. a very, very full stock pot. And now let's move it to the stove. So like I said, I'm going to put this on a medium heat. I'm going to get those rhubarb thawing out. And that's the key. They'll release a whole bunch of liquid, and therefore I don't have to add liquid. I don't want to add liquid if I don't have to, because I want this to be a thick sauce. And if I want to thin it out later, I can, but that way my kids can grab a rhubarb strawberry and consider it jam and nicely spread it on their toast. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to cover it the best that I kind of can right now until it reduces. The lid will go back on. Now what if you got everything fresh? No big deal. Add the rhubarb, add on the strawberries, again half and half, and just add a little bit of water. So you probably want an inch on the bottom of water. Let that heat it up, let it kind of steam itself, and it'll start releasing all the liquid, and then you're good to go. And the same thing will apply here. You start cooking it down. So fresh or frozen, no big deal, easy to do and ready to go. So we're going to wait till this starts simmering and the rhubarb starts softening and releasing its juices, and then we're going to simmer it down. So within about less than 10 minutes, my lid just fell down, meaning that the rhubarb is thawing and releasing liquid. Therefore, the rest of my mixture is shrinking underneath. So what you can't see, but that's what's happening, because these strawberries used to be up high, it just suddenly shrunk down. So we are making progress. It's going to take, you know, half an hour to get this nicely heated all the way through, but you want to do it slowly so you don't burn it. So just remember, things are happening in the bottom of this pot where you can't see, but it is making progress. We are about 10 minutes later, and take a look at the progress. So you can see how much it has dropped already, even more from the last video I took. So I'm going to just move some of these strawberries and show you, if I can show you the water level. You see the water level? You see that? Let's see how deep it is. So we'll put my wooden spoon right there. So that's my wooden spoon all the way to the bottom. So we are about right here. We are about right here in the water level. So we are about 3 inches of water all of a sudden at the bottom, and this is why you don't want to add that extra water, because if you just have a little patience and put your pot on low medium heat, it will pull out the water. Now it's just thawing all the fruit, and like I said, this will dramatically decrease in the amount just because everything will be thawed and it'll get cooked down. So we'll leave it for another 10 minutes and see where we are from there. Hi Meadow. So if you guys hear a little baby in the background, these two are just playing, aren't you?
Yeah.
So let's get back to our pot. So let's take a look. You see that water level? We have literally doubled the amount of water. You can now see it from the top, and things are progressing nice and fast. Again, 10 minutes have elapsed again, and we are now kind of, I don't know if you can see that steam. I sure hope you can. Kind of in this area here, that's the fruit thawing. That's just the temperature change. So it's kind of cool to see. Everything looks really good. Again, I have not changed the temperature. I'm just literally letting this pot warm up nice and slowly, thawing out the fruit. So let's check in again in another 10 minutes. Things are progressing fast. So this is about 7 minutes since I last filmed, and take a look at the water level. We are nearly about half of our pot now. It has decreased that much, and we are now basically, I would say, 80% thawed here. These strawberries are still fairly hard. So now what's going to happen is it's going to continue to thaw, and then once it is, we're going to let it reach a simmer. Once it reaches a simmer, we're going to let it simmer for about, I don't know, 10-15 minutes and let it all cook together. So I'm going to take a little bit of clips all the way through, and I will add them all together so you can see it in fast motion, but that's what we are going to do. So this is all done now. Look at it, it looks absolutely gorgeous. And we are going to, and so now we are going to put it through the blender, get it nice and smooth into a wonderful, delicious rhubarb strawberry sauce. This sauce is going to be absolutely phenomenal over pancakes, even over ice cream. If it's thick enough, it'll be great for on toast. Just a wonderful sauce. If you've never tasted strawberries and rhubarb, oh man, I really hope you do, because these two combined is one of my absolute favorite sauces. Hey everyone, we are actually the next day, and in a perfect situation you can do this while the mixture is already hot and basically can right after it. But in my world, it is dynamic in my household. With 6 kids, a farm, a business, there is so much happening that a lot of times I start something and I have to finish it the next day. So in this case, that's exactly what happened. So I'm going to show you how I can, and this is how my mom can, and this is how my grandma can, and quite frankly, this might even be how my great-great-grandma can. So we'll see. It's been passed down. This is how my mom did it, so this is how I do it, and I'm going to share that with you. There's more than one way to can, and in my opinion, there's no real right or wrong way. So what I'm going to do is show you step by step how I can, and then we're going to blend up the mixture, heat it up, and start canning. Right here. So now you see the setup of canning. Now let's dive right into actually heating up the mixture and starting to put the mixture into jars. So basically, remember I said I don't know if I'm going to add a sweetener into this or not. So now I'm going to taste test. I think I'm going to add in a little bit of honey because it is a little bit tart. Tastes wonderful. The strawberry is just really good, but I'm letting my tongue tell me, should I add a little bit of something or shouldn't I? Definitely, I think I'm gonna add a little bit of honey. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put it back on the hot plate. I'm going to heat it up. I'm probably going to put about 4 heaping tablespoons of honey in it, just to sweeten it just ever so slightly. Heat it up so this mixture is very hot. Then we can start canning. And it's key that this mixture is hot in order to can. Everything you can has to be hot, from the jars to the lids to the mixture to the canner. So that's why we turned everything on. Okay, so let's get this on the hot plate right here. Let's turn this on to medium-high heat and let's go get some honey. Let's add some honey in here. This is about 4 heaping tablespoons of honey in here, and that'll just help sweeten it just a bit. That's all it needs. Just going to mix it in. And so now basically all I need to do is let this mixture heat itself up to where it's hot. I have these I have the wide mouth snap lids. They just need to be warm. You don't need to boil this water. As long as it just stays warm, you're good with that. I have my canner and it is warm. It's not boiling hot right now, and I'm not going to turn it up in temperature until I get my jars in, so everything stays around the same temperature. I have my oven to 250. And now that it's been on for 250 for about 10 minutes, I'm actually just going to cut down the temperature because the jars are sterilized now. Now I just want the jars to stay warm. So I'm going to put it back down to 170. Now the jars are going to stay warm, the water is going to be warm, but nothing's piping hot. And so when I put the hot mixture in there, I'm not going to have any shock or cracking. When I put the hot jars in the canner, the liquid's warm, like I shouldn't say it's warmer than warm. It's on the verge of being hot, but it's not such, there's no big temperature changes in here. Then I will heat up the canner with the jars to a boil. So that's kind of my setup personally. And right now we're just gonna wait for my mixture here to get piping hot so we can start canning.
Weird because she never saw a person with glasses in stores and things when she buys stuff. I know, but like she buys nectar for her thing. But she for there I got one. Right? Yeah. Because you see that's my wood. Don't you see so? Look. And this is my mannequin. Look at how she says my. It's not mad, it's a I felt I get out. Okay, well, it's not my. Let me take a picture of mine.
So we are ready to can here. It's nice and hot. You can see that it is starting to boil. You can kind of see it kind of make some movement there. This canner is warm. So what I'm going to do now is prep here for canning. So I'm going to explain what I need to do. Basically, I need to take my can out of, I need to take my jar out of the hot oven. I'm going to put my jar up here. Then I'm going to scoop the hot liquid into the jar using a funnel so I don't make a mess. Then from there I need to put on a hot snap lid on it, and then I need to take one of these lids, put it on there, then put the jar into the canner, and then do it all over again 7 times, as this canner fits 7 jars. And then I need to bump up the heat on the canner and make sure that I have water that's an inch over the top, and if not, then I need to add in water into the canner. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the camera over to Grace. And so take a break from your bendy wax sticks, and you're ready to film, Mom?
Yeah.
Okay, so she's going to film me as I go. I'm not going to talk much because I need to move quick on this, but I gave you an overview. Now you just need to watch me in action. So, Grace, you're 6. Do your best filming, okay?
All right.
Let's go. And if you notice while I'm scooping this, I do have a piece of paper towel over from my stove to the counter. So one, it just catches the drips as I go, and it's easy cleanup. And so when you're filling up your jar, I leave head space right here. I'm only gonna fill it up to basically where you screw on the lids. That's where I fill it up to. Okay, now you notice that I'm going to use something with that is magnetic. This is actually what the people use in mechanics, or any time you're trying to pick up screws. This is actually found in the hardware section. I love it for canning. I think it works better, and that's what I use. So now I grab a piece a tea towel, because this is hot, just to tighten it so I don't touch my hot jar because it is hot. Then I grab my jar, put it into my canner, just like this. And you'll notice that once in a while the metal part here falls down. Make sure you do have this metal basket in here. If you put a jar right into a hot canner without any barrier at the bottom, you'll bust your jars. So that's what this basket is for. Also to protect from your jars being busted. Okay? So let's do this once again. And you'll notice here, take a look here, I did a pattern, and I did that very specifically and on purpose, because if I put all my snap lids in that mixture all the same direction, then when I take my magnetic rod to it, they all come up at once. So if I follow this pattern that I've kind of made up myself, it just works really slick and I don't get more than one lid. And in the canner we go with jar number 2. So I'm going to do these 7 jars the exact same way here, and I have more mixture than 7 jars, more mixture to fill, but I'm going to leave a little behind for the kids to enjoy a little bit of rhubarb strawberry sauce. I always do that. It will be only a couple of jars for them, but they'll quite enjoy it. And that way, I also don't have this strawberry and rhubarb in the freezer. It's already made, ready to go. Okay, so now we have all 7 jars in the canner and the water is covering, but I'm going to add just a little bit more water. The temperature is still under medium-high heat, but a little bit more water would be good to cover them. So I'm just going to go over to my sink here and I'm going to get a little bit more water. There we go. That's better. Okay, so you want at least about 1 inch over the top, which would be good. It's kind of hard to see, but it actually is. And now I want to bump up my heat. So I'm going to bump it right up. I'm going to cover it. And now I'm going to wait for it to hit a steady simmer. Once it hits a steady simmer, I'm going to turn down the heat just enough to keep it at that steady simmer for 15 minutes in our area. So this other thing is I'm going to turn off the oven. I've already turned off the hot plate to my sauce. I'm going to turn off the hot plate here to this liquid, and now I'm just concentrating on the canner. So now you can see why I use the paper towel. Basically now I'm going to throw this into the sink, and it just makes it really nice, easy cleanup, and I don't, you know, have to have such a mess on my counter. So that's what's really, really nice about it. All these tools that I'm using are all found in the kitchen area. These here especially for canning. Like I said, my husband actually picked this up for me. This is just magnetic rod in the tool section. It's actually for just picking up screws and stuff like that, but it works really good for canning. And like I said, this here, I mean, this is just a standard tong in the kitchen section of your Canadian Tire or whatever you got there. So nothing really crazy special here. Some pretty standard stuff, but also critical to have these to pick up the hot jars in the canner. So with that being said, let's just give this a look. It's not going to take long because the water's already hot. Now it's just going to get up to a boil. As you can see the bubbles start. That means we are at a boil, and I am now going to turn the temperature down just enough to keep this at a simmering. Now I don't ever can with a heavy boil, just a light simmer just to keep it going. So I'm going to now turn the lid on so it keeps it like that. And basically I'm going to do that for 15 minutes. Then I'm going to pull it out of the canner, and I'll show you my technique with that. So the canner is ready, and what we're going to do is we are going to just pop the lid off and turn off the hot plate for 5 minutes. What this does is depressurizes the canner. And so when you bring up the jars, everything's safe and ready to cool down. So I'm just going to put 5 minutes here in the timer and just kind of wait. Now if you were going to do another round, basically what I would do is take the new jars and start again, turn the hot plate back on to low heat, and just put the jars in and just continue on. But this, I'm only doing one batch here today. Now that the canner is done depressurizing, we're going to take them out one by one, and we're going to put them over at the table. Now if you can see at the table here, there is a towel down, and that is the reason that I put the towel down so the canning jars can drip onto the towel, and since the canning jars are hot, it doesn't burn the table. So I'm going to grab this one here by the lid and slowly lift it up and let the water drip out. I sometimes angle the jar a bit and let the water drain off from the top. Then I have a tea towel in my hand because this is really hot water and I got a distance to go. So I just literally hold it over the tea towel, bring it onto this towel, and all done. And that way there's no dripping on the floor, there's no mess, and I don't get burnt at the same time. And if you heard that pop is the snap lid sealing, so that's a really, really good sound to have. So if you listen carefully, you'll probably hear some more popping. And these last few jars, you notice I'm not actually angling them because as the water level decreases, because I am taking the jars out, then there's not as much water on top of the snap lids. So there you have it. We have 7 jars completely done. Now what you want to do is wait 24 hours. Sometimes it does take a little bit of time for them to seal. Sometimes it's as soon as you pop them right out of the canner, but let them relax for 24 hours. So tomorrow I'll show you how to test to see if they're actually sealed, and then we're going to move them into the cold storage room. So this is the next day. These jars are ready to go down to cold storage, but first we need to make sure that they are sealed. Now it's very easy. Basically, I just touch the top, and if they're not, this here will go up and down. So this one's sealed, this one's sealed, this one is, yep, and yes. So they're all sealed, which is fantastic. Now, if you notice the little white on here, that's actually mineral deposits from our water, so that's no big deal. Now, the other thing some people just don't realize is that you can actually take these rings off. They don't need to stay on because the purpose of having them on is to hold the snap lid in place down in order for it to seal to the jar. But after it has cooled down, it really serves no functional purpose, and you can actually use these for more jars. So in cold storage, let's see if I can do this with one hand. There you go. In cold storage, I leave my jars like this, and then I use these for my next batch. So that's one way to also save money, is you don't need to have 100 of these. You just need them in order to get these sealed, because this is sealed. This isn't gonna go anywhere. So that's one tip, one cost-saving tip with canning that I can give you. So now all we need to do is grab this, take it down to cold storage, and we're done. So enjoy your wonderful rhubarb sauce, and I will see you on the next video.